Hi, this is Joe again with another movie review, and the topic for this video, I'm going to be discussing the 1994 Civil War epic, Gettysburg. I know I'm a year behind because I should have done this video last year on the 150th anniversary of the battle, but for some stupid reason I never did it last year. But the movie Gettysburg is the first Civil War film that focused on just one battle and not the entire war, covering the entire war, like Gone with the Wind did, or the TV miniseries North and South, which I previously did a review on, as well as Gone with the Wind, and another TV miniseries called The Blue and the Gray, which I haven't done yet. But Gettysburg was the first film that covered one particular battle in the Civil War. Unlike other World War II movies, which covered just about every major battle in World War II. I mean, it pretty much covered every little thing just about in World War II movies, but not in Civil War films for some reason, because they had, a little bit more expensive, I guess. And that's one of the problem they had with Gettysburg. The Gettysburg, that cost so much money to make, and they actually filmed this movie on the actual Gettysburg battlefield, which I actually walked on when I was a kid. I was 12 years old at the time, and it was a thrill. To me, it was a thrill, and the best vacation I ever had was being in Gettysburg. And that was on the 120th anniversary, and 120th anniversary year of the battle. So they had this whole thing on the 120th anniversary, even though it did like a month later, or went down there a month later. But the film Gettysburg stars, ironically, it stars Morris Sheen, who was anti-war and anti-President Bush. George W. Bush stars as General Lee, and Tom Berenger plays James Longstreet, who was really the best, even better than General Lee. We'll get into it why. You had Jeff Daniels plays the real hero of the Battle of Gettysburg, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. We're going to see Thomas Howell playing Chamberlain's brother. Plus, you also had cameos by I forgot the guy who plays John Buford in the film. But you also had a guy who played James Pickett. And of course, because at the end of the battle, the Pickett's torch. But like I said, it's a movie that was going to be a big production, but unfortunately it was starting to lose money, and Ted Turner Pictures had to come in and supply the rest of the money to make this film. And even though I hate Ted Turner, but it was kind of like a Civil War buff. He does play, and you do see him briefly as like a captain, like a Confederate captain, who does get killed during Pickett's torch in the end of the film. Well, like I said, the film chronicles the Battle of Gettysburg for both sides, both the Northern version and the Confederate version, and they do a pretty good, and they do a very good job in explaining both arguments of the battle. And most of the first few minutes, like the first hour or so, chronicles the two armies converging in Gettysburg for the first day. And one of the main problems is, of course, that you do have pretty long dialogue scenes explaining, the people's point of, the general's point of view, and so on and so forth. But other than that, I thought they did a good job in detailing, the actual battle and the actual arguments that Longstreet had with General Lee. particularly after the first day, not only on the first day, but on the second day. The second day of the battle, because most of the army, or the Northern Army, was on the two mountaintops, Big Mountain Top and Little Mountain Top. And General Longstreet says, look, says to General Lee, General, it would be better if you put them up on the hill. Leave the Northern Army on that hill, and we walk right by, and we can walk right by them. Because if we climb up the hill, they'd be firing down at us. Not only would they be firing down at us, but they could roll boulders at us as well. So to avoid all that, they have to come down off the hill, chase us into Washington, and we could capture Washington if we just leave them up on the hill. And generally didn't want that because they didn't want to have the Northern Army to have the advantage on the battlefield, because the Northern Army would believe they returned the man. But they attacked them on Little Mountain Top, and that's when George Lawrence Chamberlain made that crazy maneuver when they were sweeping across the battlefield because they ran out of bullets, and they stopped the Southern advance and pretty much saved the battle, which of course turned the next day into Pickett's Charge, which was another big mistake from the Southern Army, because they had to walk across like a mile and a half through open field to get to where the Northern position was in the center of that line. And of course, so James Pickett was in charge of that only regiment that wasn't engaged yet. As a matter of fact, General Pickett graduated last at West Point. To show you how smart he was, he graduated last in his class. So he charged the field, going to be the big hero, even his entire entire regiment was wiped out. So when the Southern Army was left, started coming back to the Southern line, General Lee says, General Pickett, rally your men in case there was for a possible Northern counterattack. And General Pickett says, General Lee, I have no division now. This was a big dramatic moment, and so was the whole sequence of Pickett's Charge. And matter of fact, James Longstreet was the only general who, and General Lee's staff who says, don't do it. It'll be a big mistake. Our army is going to be wiped out if you do this. But General Lee overruled him. And of course, he couldn't give the order to the General Longstreet's position. What the job was to give the order to charge on the third day of the battle. And General Pickett, William Truman says, General, is the word given. And he couldn't, and General Longstreet couldn't speak the word, he just nodded. And of course, and he was very upset because he was proven right. He didn't want to be proven right, but he was right in the end. And of course, after the war, General Longstreet was given the blame for the Southern failure at Gettysburg, and considered him a traitor because he had the nerve to question General Lee. But the whole production was made well. The soundtrack was terrific. The acting was terrific. There's not one bad thing I can say about Gettysburg, the Gettysburg movie. Because later on they actually made a prequel, like a few years later, they actually made a prequel once called Gods and Generals. Which was pretty much the same cast. I think they cast a different actor to play General Lee. The more she was not available, or I think at that time he was protesting President Bush in the Iraq War. So I guess maybe he got some flack as to say, hey, how can you have the nerve to be protesting the Iraq War when you're acting in a Civil War movie? So I guess he pulled out. They had, if that's what the actor was, to replace Maureen Sheen in Gods and Generals. But that's what they did. Like I said, he probably got got crapped off from Hollywood. So how can you protest the war when you're acting in a Civil War film? But in terms of Gettysburg, back to Gettysburg film, I thought it was a great film because I experienced being at the Gettysburg battlefield and seeing everything that was there. So I enjoyed watching that film simply because it was actually on that battlefield. And that was the only Civil War battlefield they actually visited. And if those of you who have never visited the Gettysburg battlefield, or if you're interested in history or the Civil War in particular, I highly recommend you going there. Or any other Civil War battlefield actually, because it's a worthwhile experience. Believe me, it's a worthwhile experience. And also it's not a very expensive vacation. I don't know how much they charge now in Gettysburg. It's been over 30 years since I was down there. I guess obviously prices went up. But in terms of it, it's a worthwhile vacation. For a family, especially if you're interested in history. My family's always been interested in history. Particularly in the Civil War. But Gettysburg is the best, the most famous, the most traveled to and visited battlefield of all the Civil War battlefields. And of course you're going to have the Confederate flag throughout the whole film. And that's not, contrary to the popular belief, the Confederate flag is not a racist flag. It's an American flag. Just the southern, it's a Confederate flag. And because this country was divided in two, and that was the flag that the Confederate States of America picked. Even though that the country only lasted like 4 years, 5 years, from 1860 when they started to form the Confederates to the Confederate States to 1865 when the Civil War ended. That was their flag. So it was an official American flag. And unfortunately, the stupid racists turned that flag into a racist symbol. Unfortunately, because at the time the flag was built, yes, slavery was in existence at the time the flag was used. But by 1863, there was no more slavery. It's January 1, 1863, so the next 2 years you can't claim it was a racist symbol anymore. Or a slavery flag. The symbol of slavery. It's not a symbol of slavery, it's a symbol of the United States of America during the time of the Civil War. Period. We're going to say that the flag of Germany is a racist flag now. The country's flag of Germany right now is a racist flag because they had the Holocaust. I haven't heard anybody claim the Nazi flag, except for the Nazi flag, of course. I'm saying the actual country's flag is a racist flag because they had the Holocaust. I haven't heard anybody say that. Why? Because they're white. Jews are white. That's why not saying nobody says anything. I know I'm not a little man, but but that's the case. But that doesn't take away from the film Gettysburg in terms of being a great Civil War film, or any other Civil War film. That's probably why not too many have been made lately, because of the fact that, hey, you're going to have the Confederate flag throughout the film, and people are going to get offended by it. But the film itself, that type of crap takes away from how good the film is. So please get a chance to see the film. I know it's a long movie. It's over 4 hours. It's a 4-hour movie. It's well worth watching, especially on the anniversary of July 1st, July 2nd, July 3rd. Because that's when the Battle of Gettysburg happened. So please get a chance to see that film. Please, if you click on my videos, like it, please feel free to comment on. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel, and please forward this, link this video onto your Facebook pages. Thanks for watching.